What's up, everybody? Thanks for watching today, baby. All right, guys. So I have my friends here in the house. If you guys would like to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Lee.
I'm Ashley.
So we got these guys have known me for Leaf. Lee. I've been friends with you for what? 25, 30, 30, 20. How many years? 25 years?
Like 23.
23.
Yeah.
How many years? 25 years? Ash, how about you? I hear some.
Oh, I
You guys got some background.
23. Yeah.
All right, Ash. What about you?
Hold on, we got another sound going. Hold on.
I think you gotta mute the other phone. You guys have it
Yeah,
on the
well,
phone.
you just did.
Just did
Okay.
that.
I literally do that every freaking stream. I do the same thing on this phone. I'm like, ah! All right, how long have I known you?
Since probably I was like 16, 17, like
Okay.
going in rides in your fast cars, like going to the cemetery at night. I think it was around 16, 17. So that would be like, 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So between the two of them, you guys, it's pretty much 40, 50 years of friendship, basically. Back when she was in high school, I was dating her really good friend. And that's kind of how we knew each other basically back in the day. And then just kind of hanging out. You guys will see. Hey, Deb, how are you? You guys can see the live chat, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Deb is one of our moderators. So to any of my mods that are in here right now, Deb, if on the rare chance we get a troll or somebody being rude on this video, just go ahead and wipe them right out here if you could. I know you're always really good about staying up on that. Luckily, we don't have too many issues with that kind of stuff, but okay, I wanted to start off the video, guys, by basically everything on this entire channel, as you guys know, nothing is medical advice. Anything that we talk about in this video is not medical advice. We're all just kind of sharing our experiences so people can learn from them and make their own decisions, basically just trying to get out the information. So I did want to say real quick too that we have, as you guys know, the channel was recently monetized. So the recent contributors to the channel, I would like to take a quick second to thank Misty and Crystal Kern. Who else? Callie Love, thank you. Deb, you're always here helping out, thank you. And Maddie and Marky Rizzo as well. So you guys have all contributed to the channel recently via Super Chat. So it's much appreciated, and that will be going towards the egg white fund. So thank you guys for doing that. I don't know if you guys seen one of my videos recently. I talked about my diet and just how many egg whites I go through. Like I'm always freaking drinking. This is an egg white chocolate shake. I don't know if you guys have seen that video or not, but
I glanced at it. I haven't watched
you?
it all the way through yet, but I was like, oh, I gotta watch this for sure.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people go through there, and like sometimes people just have no idea like what they should be eating really, and like I think that learning diet could be such a lifelong thing. I'm still trying to learn things in different ways of how to eat, so it's like I might as well just because a lot of people ask me like what I eat, and so I just put down all my meals in the video and showed them basically what it was. So
I
you guys will have to check
definitely
it
need
out.
to watch it, like the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah, it's kind of different though because I have to put a lot of carbs in my diet, right? Because I'm such a like naturally skinny person.
Right.
So it's like don't copy obviously so many carbs. And for everybody that's watching, if you did see that video and you're trying to lose weight, just be really careful not to include all the carbs that I do in my meals because my body's so much different than everybody else's. But it's just cool to kind of see like different ideas for meals. You can kind of go with it from there. So that's really all I wanted to say about that. I just want to say really quick, I want to thank both of you for your friendship all these years. And you guys are the first people that I really actually know in real life that have been on the channel with me here. So I sincerely do thank both of you for your friendship and for being vulnerable to come on here and sharing your story.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you helped me. ton along my journey. So super
Good.
happy to do it.
I'm glad. Yeah,
Like
I
a
like to.
ton.
I'm excited to get into that part of the story here. So I'm trying to think where we should start. All right. So Ash, let's start with you. If you could just kind of start off with like the basics of your addiction. When did it start? What medication or what prescription or were you taking? Were you getting it legally? Just kind of give us like a basic kind of rundown of it.
Right. Okay. So it probably started, like, I've always been a pretty experimental person, like kind of an adventurous person, try anything. So I experimented a little bit in my probably like 19, 20 years old. And then with just honestly kind of random pain pills that my boyfriend at the time, his family had a lot of them. And so I was kind of the guinea pig, like, hey, I got this, try it. And I loved it. And then I had my son and was prescribed, just Lortabs or whatever, but loved the way they made me feel. And
Hmm.
it wasn't like such a strong like addiction at that point as much as it was like, oh, I kind of liked that. But then of course, like as years go on, it progresses to, you know, hey, I need a ride somewhere and I'll, to go pick up my prescription and I'll give you some of them and whatever. So it just gradually increased over time. And then I had like a pretty stressful job, and I found that they helped me get through that. Like I have to be around people, so it definitely helped me get through that. And I kept the addiction part of it under control for a really long time, up until, was it like three? No, it was a bit longer than that. Up until like 5 years ago.
Yeah,
How long ago was it?
Like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was a long time ago. It got to a point that they became super accessible. I mean, it was so bad that I was trying to get my doctor that I worked for to sign prescriptions for my parents, thinking I could get away with that. Like, it was just ridiculous how much it took over, like, common sense, for sure. And the amount of money you spend on things. But anyway, it got to a point where they became quite a bit more accessible for me. And of course, I'm going to dig into whatever I could get. And so I was taking quite a bit, and it got to the point where it was affecting our relationship big time, because I was drinking as well. And so we would get in huge fights, and I was spending a ton of money when I wasn't really contributing as much to the household, and so of course that causes, arguments or whatever. So he was finally like, you have a huge problem. And I knew it, I just never wanted to accept it. So that's when I think I did quit on my own. Around December, we both quit everything, drinking, pills, everything. And honestly, like, the withdrawals isn't the worst part, in my opinion. They suck like no other. I think the hardest part is figuring out how to be you after the fact. So after being clean for 2 months from everything, and still working during this time, and I work very closely with people all day, I had like a talk at work on what's going on with me. Like, you're not the rock star we normally see, and this and that. And oh, hi, Goose.
Kitty.
Hi, Kiki. Hi.
We love animals on this channel.
Yeah, that's Goose. But anyway, yeah, I had to sit down at work, which I've never had to do in my life, saying like, like, what's going on with you? Or you're used to you being this rock star and blah, blah, blah. And I called leave and I was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. Like I need pills to do my job, right? And so right then I went and filled my prescription, and because I had like a prescription for tramadols, which not strong, but certainly
Yeah.
addictive and
Hmm.
do the trick. And but it really was the 2 months of like, hey, I did this, I should feel amazing now that I quit. And I couldn't quite get my bearings.
Okay.
She's fine.
So yeah,
And,
she's totally fine. So
all
let me back up a little bit here. So to start off, like what doses were you starting to take? Like what pill, like a five, lower tab 5, 7, 5, a 10, like what kind of started you off?
right. When I got my prescription after having Tristan, I'm pretty sure it was Lortab 7.5s.
Okay.
And I was probably taking them like pretty well as prescribed, but wasn't in a ton of pain. And
Okay.
prior to that, as far as like the experimental stuff, it's hard to say. It was probably like Roxy, what are they, 30s?
Mm-hmm.
Percocets of some sort for sure. A lot of times I didn't really know. It was just
Mm-hmm.
like, here, try this, see if you like
Wow. Okay.
this. And I, you know, looking back, I ended up stealing them from my ex
Mm-hmm.
after we broke up because I
Okay.
wanted them and I knew where he kept them. You know what I mean? So, but it was a variety of
Okay.
things. But I definitely like got hooked on all of them, or got hooked
Okay.
on, you know, the way I was on all of like whatever it was. But it was definitely all opiates for sure.
Okay. Time out real quick here. We just got a super chat from Maddie. My buddy sent us a $5 super sticker. Thank you, Maddie. That's going to contribute a carton of egg whites to the egg white gang here. So I really appreciate that. Maddie also has a channel, guys. He just hit 100 subscribers. So you see
Hell
his
yeah.
channel name right there, Lost at 40. He recently got off Suboxone as well. So if any of you guys that are watching this haven't seen his channel yet, go check it out. Lost at 40 is his channel. Okay, so back to your story here. So would you say that like immediately you started taking more, or was it like really spaced out over like a few years before you started taking more? Or like how did your tolerance grow? Was it fast? Did it take a while?
No, it was slow. It was slow and very random. Like if they came around, they came around. If I could, find them in the house where they were hidden. If my friend and I wanted to have a mega cleaning day or a mega craft day, I would find one and take basically like a quarter of a Roxy and, you know, have a craft night or a scrapbooking night or stupid stuff. But
Hmm.
um gosh, I'm trying to think, when did it it became regular, I want to say during college.
Okay.
During college, I got really stressed out. Like I was going to school and had bought my own condo that I probably had no business doing. I had a son that I was raising. I was in between relationships. So I had a ton of stress and I was using that to cope.
Okay.
And one day I didn't have any and I had final exams coming up. And I literally went to I remember sitting in the parking lot of the school, like shaking in tears. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I called my mom, like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, go to the doctor. Just go to the doctor. You can't manage like this. So I went to the doctor at the school, and he was such an awesome doctor. And he had a link in dependency stuff. So he kind of knew what I was going through, but couldn't treat me in that way. And I'm like, here's the
Mhm.
thing, like, this is my last class to get into the program. Like, everything lies on this, and I can't function like this. And, he's like, I know you can't go through withdrawals, but it was at that point that I was like, holy crap, it's incredible how much this takes over your life without you even realizing it happening. Like,
Yeah, like how many years would you say from the very start to where you actually realized that there was a problem? Like you could say, okay, I'm definitely like addicted to this stuff. How many years do you think it took you to catch that?
so Tristan, it was 2004. So he was probably 4 years, 3 or 4 years of like kind of messing around with it, but not needing it. Like still constantly wanting it, but I didn't have the dependency for it. You know what I mean? It was like I would take any chance I could get to have it, but it was never like I couldn't go a day without it up until probably about that point, which I want to say probably was 2007 or something like that. So, you know, around the time my son was born, 2004 to 2007-ish.
Okay.
Probably. Yeah.
So Lee, let me ask you, have you ever struggled with any sort of painkiller or opiate addiction at all?
I haven't. It's kind of it's taken a lot for me to kind of wrap my head around, the whole addiction side of opiates, because it doesn't do for me what it does for Ashley, or for other people that are struggling with it. I've been prescribed, in the past, and if I'm not in pain, it doesn't do anything for me. It actually makes me kind of sick, and never really enjoyed, or I can't say that I haven't enjoyed the way it's made me feel, but I've never had any sort of a dependency or just desire to like be on it.
So it never like tickled your fancy as far as like, oh, this feels so good. Like you don't get like that lovey-dovey over like happy feeling.
It's definitely made me feel good. Like at the beginning of our relationship, she introduced me to stuff like higher dose stuff, probably like Roxy's. I took a couple of times.
Did you puke?
And yeah, I definitely. Once the first time I puked, and it just doesn't do it for me.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting how different everybody's chemistry is. It's like I've said on a few other videos in the past, like sometimes some people can take like the ADHD medication and they get way energized, and other people are like chill and focused. Like it just trips me out that a medication can be so different for everybody. It sounds like you didn't get the one that Ash and I got, as far as the one that just loves opiates. And you're lucky for it, I tell you that.
I'm grateful for that, because we both come from, both of our parents, both sides of our families, on both sides struggle with addiction issues, and so it's definitely lucked out on that one for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually had that on my list to ask. So okay, so you said both of your families are struggling with addiction or have been struggling.
Both sides, both of our families, like
big time.
At least a generation, if not two.
Okay. Yeah. What is it that they're mostly addicted to?
My family, alcohol big time, up to like my great grandpas being big time alcoholics. The funny thing is, the females, like my grandmas, for example, they she's so freaking out about what's going on right now. She does not like it.
She's okay.
No, so both my grandpas, like, bad alcoholics too, like abusive, like verbally, physically. Obviously I wasn't there to see it. There, say hi.
We got the animal hour here. Hey, Belle, look, there's a kitty.
No
there's a
locking
kitty.
her up either. But yeah, big time. But both of my grandmas, straight as arrows. Like, and the funny thing is, it's not funny, but like, both my grandpas have since passed away, and both of them stopped drinking before I can even remember. I just hear stories. And the only addiction I know that they both had, one was cigarettes and coffee, nonstop, and one was cigarettes and Coke, nonstop. So
Coke,
that took.
Like Coke or Coke?
So like
soda. Oh, like soda, like Coca-Cola, like Coca-Cola. Yeah.
All right.
All the time. And so I think that like replaced that. But both my grandmas never really experimented with anything or never really drank. And they're both like killing it in their like 80s. Like one of my grandmas still goes to like clubs and stuff. And I'm like, what's your trick? Because you have more energy than I do. And her thing was, I don't drink. Like, don't drink. That will, you know. So,
Slow you down.
yeah, big time. And then as far as my family, both of my parents have always been extremely functioning addicts on multiple things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what about you, Lee? What do you have on your side of the family? Like, what do they mostly struggle with?
Like alcohol for like both sides, both my parents, like definitely alcoholics. You know, there could be more. I'm not super close. There could be more on my mom's side. You know, their parents. I know they drank. I don't know to what extent. You know, but growing up, my parents were definitely alcoholics for sure.
Okay.
And I had a unique situation listening, like talking to you the other day about your dad's story and how much you hated it. And I feel like, and it was probably a disadvantage. I had a very unique situation of seeing, I'm not going to say a positive side, but growing up as a kid, I saw my parents like partying, having a good time, having other friends over. And so to me, it was always like, that's awesome. I want to do that. Like, I want that lifestyle. I saw dark sides too, but it did like have sort of a ingrained thing in my head that I want to have fun and whatever with whatever substance. I mean, I didn't have it in my head at that time, but I think that drove a lot because I talked to a lot of people who their parents were, you know, alcoholics or addicts or whatever. And, you know, their stories are horrible. Like my best friends in high school had total opposite, you know, experiences. And mine was like, for the most part, pretty pleasant. And I enjoyed it. And, you know, I feel like that's a unique thing. I don't think that happens very often, but.
So overall, you had a pretty good childhood, you would say?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was great.
What about you, Lee?
I'd say overall, like pretty good. You know, it had some moments. You know, my mom was like she got to kind of excess when it came to alcohol and just like personality and personality disorders in general. Kind of abusive, like on the verge of abuse, I would say.
Okay. Were you guys both? Did you have your mom and your dad in the family all the way through childhood, or what was the situation like for both of you?
So I did until I was about 15, and after that I kind of did my own thing. It's not a huge factor in growing up. About that age, I was off doing my own thing, working, you know, doing the car thing. not around much at that point. So it's kind of, you know, them splitting up was not super relevant in anything that has to do with maybe my story. But yeah.
Okay. And yet mine are still married.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Happily is questionable. I don't think they'll ever leave each other, but they bicker like cats and dogs, and they're both still, like, especially my dad. And my dad, like, I idolize him, and most people who meet him do. He's just a very like happy-go-lucky, not a care in the world, like just positive. And my mom is the opposite of that, but she's also the one that kind of takes care of everything and whatnot. But yeah, they're still married, but it's hilarious every time you're around them. It's like a comedy show. Like I show up at their house and she's over there like, Russ, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And you can tell he's fucked up, but he's cooking and like, would you just shut up? Let me cook. You know what I mean? Like it's hilarious.
Do you think like from what you've seen over the years, do you think most of their fights stem from when they're drunk or been
But
drinking?
oh hell yeah, all the time, every time.
Okay,
Like I
that's good to know.
remember calling 911 when I was young. I think I was in like 4th grade, and it was when he was in like a bad alcohol rage, and
Hmm.
he had like I think pinned my mom to a wall or something. And this was a rare occurrence, but like pinned my mom to a wall. My sister went up to pull him off, and I saw him push her down the stairs, and I ran upstairs and called 911, and they showed up, and it was, I mean, my dad still, like, up to like what 2-3 years ago, held that against me. Wouldn't punish any of us after that happened, because he felt like I was in the wrong and whatnot. But we made amends a few years ago, but my dad and I have still had a great relationship. It's just that he kind of said, like, I'm cut off punishing
Gotcha.
these kids, whatever. So yeah, it was always a drunk argument, always.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed that as well. Like thinking back over seeing my mom, like with her relationships over the years, like whenever there was some drama, it was always while she was drinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Mm-hmm.
thinking back to like my relationships and when I would drink like on a more normal occasion, it was always the big blown out fight whenever we were drunk. So, just kind of interesting to think how much of an impact drinking can have on your relationship because I've definitely noticed and issues with it as well. Somebody had asked here, Misty asked, she said, Ash, are you a nurse?
No,
Okay,
I'm a
she's not a nurse.
hygienist.
Hygienist, all right. And then, okay, so let's jump a little bit back into your opiate stuff, Ash. So, okay, so when you guys got together, what, 8 years ago or so, when you guys started dating?
It was like 7.
About 7. Yeah.
Yeah,
7 years
7 years
ago?
ago.
About what kind of, like, what was your addiction like that at that point? Did you take 20 milligrams a day? Like, were you drinking a lot as well?
No, I wasn't. I would drink to go out on the weekends, and it was usually only like every other weekend when I didn't have my son. So it was pretty rare. When I drank a lot. Like I drank to, like, you know, get drunk or whatever, go out.
Hmm.
But never like a daily thing. As far as pills go, I was definitely addicted on those. Trying to remember what I was taking at that time. I was definitely taking tramadols, which
Okay.
were prescribed, but I was taking them way beyond the amount that was prescribed to me. Shoot, I can't remember what I was taking and where I like.
Was it something they were just taking like once a day or
Oh
multiple times a
no.
day?
Oh no,
Okay.
yeah, it was usually like I think they were 50 milligrams, and I would take like 2 in the morning, and then 2 in the afternoon, and then 2 in the evening, sometimes 3, between 2 and 3 a few times a day. And then if I had some sort of an event or anything stressful, it would increase. And then I always had a consistent stash of some sort of Lortab or Percocets,
Hmm.
always. But I can't say it was ever like, no, it had to have been super consistent, because I know I was taking more than tramadols. Tramadols were like to keep me even kill, but
Hmm.
anytime I wanted to like feel the high, I would take like a Lortab or a Percocet or whatever.
Hmm.
But as far as like how I was getting them, it wasn't super consistent. So it's so hard to say like what milligram I was on, but I know for sure it was 2 to 3, 50 milligrams every few hours on tramadol. And then
Hmm.
if I had lower tabs and whatnot on top of that, and I'm pretty sure I did all the time, but they weren't as regular and consistent as like tramadols were.
Okay. So I honestly don't know anything about tramadol. Is that some
Oh,
sort?
really?
It's not an opiate of any type,
It
right?
It is.
is. Yeah.
It's a
Oh,
They
really
tell
really?
you
good
it's
drug.
not. They tell you it's
Okay.
not. Absolutely is. Absolutely. I think it's a more mild version, but just as addictive. And every time my doctor gave it to me, and she genuinely believed me that my cramps weren't that bad and whatever. She'd been seeing me for a while, so she trusted me in that way. And every time she would read a disclosure, like, this is addictive. Do not take more than you're prescribed. Do not drive. Do not operate heavy machinery, whatever. So just kidding. I just remembered what was going on at this time. I was taking way more tramadol. I had a source that was getting them from Mexico, and they were 100 milligrams of tramadols, and I could get a ton of them. So I was taking a ton of those. And then anytime I could mix Lortab and Percocet in there, I was taking a ton of those. So exact amounts, I don't know, but probably in the 100, guaranteed 100 milligrams every 3 hours.
Okay.
And then if I was going to do something, that stressed me out or that was exciting that night, I would increase it, or I would take something else along with it.
I gotcha. Okay. And then let's say, when you guys first started dating, did Lee know about your addiction to opiates at all?
Not at first. Not at first, but I was a pretty open book about everything, so I'm pretty sure it was pretty quick into the relationship that I let him know that. And I trusted him, like, for some reason, very, very quickly on. We, like, kind of just spilled our shit, like,
Yeah.
this is what I got, this is what you got. And it was probably like a month and a half into dating that I let him know, like,
Wow.
I have an addiction to opiates. Like, it's under control. It makes me, whatever. It is what it is. And he was okay with it at first.
I like how you said, I have an addiction, but it's under control. Like,
right?
Isn't it funny how we want to try to, like, spin it to where we're like, hey, I'm an addict, but I got this. Like,
right.
I'm
As
sure
long
he
as
was
you can get it.
yeah, exactly.
As long as I can get it, it's under control.
Yeah. So so she says she let you know about a month and a half or so into you guys dating that she was struggling with her opiate addiction.
Do you remember
What were you thinking at the time? Like, when she told you that, or when you found out that she was taking opiates, what was your thoughts?
Honestly, like, at that point in time, I wasn't super concerned about it because she's extremely functional, very responsible, like, did everything you're supposed to do as an adult, and, like, did it very well. And I could also relate. I would call it, like, high functioning addiction. I would classify myself kind of in the same category when it comes to alcohol. So it wasn't like this big bombshell that went off at that point, and it was just that one. It was really just pills. The alcohol thing was very, like, for her, was very sporadic, although a train wreck generally when that did happen. So pills weren't really an issue for me with her at this point in time.
Okay. So just pause real quick, guys. It looks like we have 11 people in watching right now. It looks like we have 5 people that have hit the like button. So if you guys could help us out and hit that like button on your way in here, or on your way out if you're leaving, that would help us out. So please do so. Okay, so jumping back to your guys' story here. So when would you guys say it started to cause issues with your relationship? Like, how far in? What were the doses escalating at the time?
Yeah, I would say the doses were escalating. Maybe another podcast we could talk about your brother or whatever, or not podcast, but you two. Like, I mean, that definitely escalated things a bit. But yeah, maybe not today, but they did start to escalate over time. There were stressful, traumatic events between the both of us. We got this house, and our whole lifestyle kind of changed, and availability of pills increased. Alcohol definitely increased to, you know, more times than not, and then eventually to daily. So then it was taking more pills and also drinking alcohol on top of it. And so at certain points in the night, I would become someone else. Mm-hmm. And then the next morning, not remember what happened. And he would have to explain, you know, here was our fight. I mean, I remember some of them, but there was many times that I did not remember what happened. And I would wake up and be like, why are you mad at me? Like, really? You know? Or like, yeah, different things like that. So yeah, it became, and then also financially, I felt like I needed a ton more. So whereas before I was like buying them here and there, I was starting to buy them quite a bit and spending like a lot of money on it when, you know, we share bills and financially, you know, he does better than I do. So he's picking up a lot of the slack, but also all my extra money is going to pills and he can see that, you know. Mm-hmm. So I started to hide it from him, which we have a very like open and honest relationship. Like we just don't hide stuff. Like you deal with it. And there was, you know, I started to get a source that I didn't want him to know about. And yeah, that blew up our relationship, like blew it up. And prior to that, there were probably 2 or 3 episodes that it blew up. You know, we worked through it, but it blew up.
What were you thinking while all this stuff was going on, Lee? Like what are some red flags maybe you could say that people could watch out for if they suspect that their husband or wife may be struggling with addiction that they don't know about? What would you say they could look for possibly?
What they could look for?
I mean, like maybe some kind of odd behavior or them coming home late maybe, or I don't know, like anything you could think of, maybe like extra, like overly lovey talking to you type stuff or anything like that stand out to you? Like
just like out of the ordinary stops. Like I gotta go here to do something. You're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like if something doesn't make sense, it doesn't, you know, there's a reason that it doesn't make sense. And it, you know, at that point you start asking questions yourself, like, well, what's going on? And then, you know, like she said, we have a very open relationship. I'd come to her and I'd ask her, and she would tell me. And so, I mean, at least there was that, but there was a lot of sneaking around. It's so obvious, you know.
At least it is to most people.
Yeah, it might not be for most people. I mean, I guess if you don't have a very open relationship, it can easily be hidden to a certain extent.
You would also say that I was like super lovey-dovey. You could tell I was high when I was like super lovey-dovey and happy, or like, you know, like just different in that way. I remember you making comments about that. Like I could tell you were high at that point because you were like acting all lovey-dovey and then super ornery after.
It's true. Yeah, no, there's a lot of truth to that. Higher highs and lower lows, just emotionally, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You used to say I didn't laugh as much, like I didn't really laugh a lot when I was on pills. You made comments about that after, I think after Suboxone. Yeah, I remember, and I don't notice this stuff myself, but I remember him making comments to me like you really laugh now. You know, you didn't show that before, or you really cry now. Like, you know, little things like that you're pretty even kill. You can pretend to show emotion, but there's not a ton of real. Like you don't feel the emotion, you know. So you know it's there, but like you don't feel it.
The substance is missing.
I gotcha. All right, so kind of let's go forward a little bit towards. So at this point, you guys were starting to have relationship issues. Your dose of opiates was escalating. So I'm assuming that things just kept getting worse as your dose kept escalating. Usually things start to go a little bit funky the higher the dose. Were you guys ever considering divorce over your addiction, do you think? Or was it kind of heading that way maybe?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it was because of your addiction?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say like 90%,
Okay.
95%. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So you guys are obviously probably getting kind of desperate for, is that kind of when I heard from you guys and we thought about doing Suboxone? Is
Hmm.
that about the time that all kind of happened, or?
It was shortly after that. So we had thrown around divorce multiple times, which is like really, really sad. We've combined children together. We've brought so many people into this relationship. We both know we have something super special, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't. I could decrease it, and I tried, and I did stop for 2 months, and I just didn't feel like me. And I was
Mhm.
like, I know I can fix this with a pill, so why not?
Mhm.
So in my brain, it was like I'm choosing to make him happy over making me happy because the pill makes me feel happy. So you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So there were a lot of fights about that. There was one final one that, a huge blowout, and things were out of control because of I was on so many pills, and drinking at the same time. And when that happened, it was pretty well like we're getting a divorce. And I basically said, because I think it was towards the end of the year, and I'm like, I don't want to try and get sober again throughout Christmas. Like, I don't want to do that. So give me till the first of the year and I'll get sober. Like, we'll figure it out. I don't know how, but we'll figure it out. And after the first of the year, I'll cut them off. I know they're not good for me. Just give me till the first of the year, because I don't want to just be abruptly stopped like I was,
Yeah.
like had happened prior. I wanted to be in like mentally prepared. So yeah, after the first of the year, I said we'll stop, and so I started decreasing after Christmas what I was taking, and then we were in Idaho, and he called you, like, hey, like, you've done this, you know how this goes. What do we do here? Because we
Mhm.
had no clue. I didn't know anybody who's done it. I had no clue what to do. So
So
yeah.
at that point, when you guys had called me, did you know about Suboxone at that point or no?
Me and you had talked a little bit about it, I think, before, and kind of
Mhm.
discussed it a little bit. So I think at that point in time, I had a bit of a skewed perception of what it
Oh yeah, you
of
were
what it
kind of
was.
anti.
I was pretty
Yeah.
anti,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
in what little experience I had, had with it, as far as people that I know, just ignorance, really ignorance. And you it kind of just explained your experience to me, and it made me feel a lot more comfortable about, I guess, pursuing that as an option of
Okay.
like treatment.
Yeah.
So what was your view of it before I like explain things better, like, and give you more of a schooling on it? What did you think? Like, if you heard the word Suboxone, what was like going through your head?
Just okay. This is something that's just going to leave a person a shell of the person that this person used to be, and create a whole new addiction. Like a whole new addiction that's not going to go away. So we're going to take one thing and replace it with another, and that doesn't really fix anything or solve anything. But I also
Mhm.
didn't understand that there were limitations to it. Like
Mhm.
on it doesn't necessarily get you high, but it would get you, to where it maybe satisfies the craving, and it makes it so you also can't take pills and it actually do anything. I didn't understand. I never understood that point prior
Okay.
when I had my you know ignorant opinions about it before talking to you. So
Mhm. Yeah, he felt like it was replacing one addiction with another that's probably more expensive, even though it's like medically prescribed. Like, because I think I did hear about it before that, and I think I brought it up to him, and he was like, "Oh hell no." Like that's just basically paying for a new addiction. Like he knew people that were addicted to it. And so I was like, okay, well, you know, case shut on that one until we talked to you, and then, you know, got a little more views on it. And I didn't know anyone who had, maybe I did. I don't know if I knew anyone who had actually taken it.
I knew people that had taken it, but I never had conversations with them about it. It was just like I knew that they did, and like I'd seen them before and seen them after, and I just created my own narrative.
Thoughts about it.
Yep.
I gotcha. So okay, so let's say so after you talked to me and I kind of like told you guys my journey with my addiction, you felt more comfortable getting her to try Suboxone, right?
Correct.
So guys, you've heard me, if you guys have watched, the people watching this, if you guys have seen a lot of my videos, you probably have heard at some point me tell the horror story, and this is the horror story right here. The way that the doctor basically tried to force her to take 16 milligrams when I had recommended that they ask if they could start at 2 milligrams, just because the dose she was taking, if I remember right, Ash, I want to say you were taking like, what was it, 60 to 70, 80 milligrams a day spread out throughout the day of opiates? Does that sound right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So for somebody that's spreading out 60 to 80 milligrams of opiates a day, to jump right on 16 milligrams all at once of Suboxone, like that doctor goofed up big time. And that really actually pissed me off when that happened, because then, so I'll just kind of tell you guys like what happened with their induction day. So basically they went in, they told the doctor that they were taking, she was taking 60 to 80 milligrams a day. The doctor said, I'm going to start you on 16 milligrams. And Lee, didn't you suggest trying to start lower? And he said something like, I'm the doctor here, do what I say, basically.
Yeah, he was very, very close-minded. Like this is how it's going to happen. There wasn't a lot of questions like of like what the previous dosage, anything. It was just kind of like you could tell this was like this guy's standard deal. He's a dinosaur. So.
Oh my, such a like you've never seen an older doctor in your life.
Yeah,
holy crap! Like, oh my.
Yeah, he was definitely set in his ways.
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple different addiction specialist doctors about your guys' scenario, like what happened in that, and both of them said that they would have probably tried to start you on 2 milligrams, which honestly I would have been freaking perfect, and it really pisses me off that.
What was it, like 16?
He tried to do 16, got away with 8, but tried to do the 16.
Oh yeah, I even questioned it when he told me. So I, did what you like? I ripped it up, put it on my tongue, and I wanted to stick with that. When he was like, "Okay, how are you feeling?" and I'm like, "Well, I don't know. It's been like 2 minutes. I think I feel the same. Still sweating, still whatever." And he's like, "Okay, go ahead and do the second one." And I'm like, "You really think that's a good idea this soon?" And he was like, "Oh yeah." Yeah, go ahead and take it. And I'm like, oh, okay. You think like the whole thing? Like, are you sure? And he was like, oh yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and just do that. Yep. If you're still feeling anything, go ahead. And literally it had been like 2 minutes. And I'm like, there is no way. And I was so nervous to not do what he said, that like I was so scared to like rip it, hide it. But thank God. Dear, yeah.
So basically what happened in their scenario, guys, was the doctor like basically tried to force her to take 16 milligrams right in front of him, right? And then as you guys know, it takes Suboxone like an hour and a half to fully kick in. So for her to actually feel something as quick as he said, 2 minutes, it would be impossible for you to feel Suboxone kick in 2 minutes. So I was texting Lee. I said, do not let her take the full 16 milligrams. I said, and I knew how the office was because I'd been in that same room that they were in, and I knew that there was a mirror behind. So I told him, just tell her to turn around and look in the mirror and fake like she took it, And it sucks to like bypass what the doctor, who should be doing a better job at inducting people onto Suboxone. It sucks to have to like bypass that, but me also knowing with how much experience I had with opiates and Suboxone, I knew that would have been way, way, way too strong. So thank God she was able to get away with basically, was it 8 milligrams your first dose, pretty much?
Mhm.
Okay. And explain to me, Lee, the conversation that we had about, what was it, hour and a half to 2 hours after the medication kicked in. You said something like she couldn't drive if she had to. She was that intoxicated.
There's no way she could have drove. She could barely walk. She could barely walk. Like I had to like support her walking.
So
Yeah.
what did she look like visually? Like she was sleepy or wide awake, or what was she looking like?
She, I mean, she looked. It's hard to explain. I've never seen anything quite like it before. It's the only time I saw it. She looked very out of it. Just she kind of the best way I could describe it, almost like somebody coming out of surgery, coming off of anesthesia. It was a lot
Uh-huh.
like that. A
Just
lot
out
like
of
that.
it.
Yeah, like we went to breakfast after. She's like, I'm so hungry, so we stopped and got some breakfast. And her voice, like just how loud she was like 3 times louder than everybody else in the restaurant. So when she would say anything, it was like she was screaming, like yelling, not screaming. Um, and yeah, she was just completely out of it, and just her eyes were just rolling around. I mean, it was nuts. Never seen
Ash,
anything.
what would you say that you felt like if you could recall? I don't know if you can remember that far back, but like what if you could break down the first like few hours of your first Suboxone, what did you feel?
Well, I do have one other. I had a thought while you were talking
Okay.
about like how he like it takes an hour and a half for it to kick in, and when I was like, it's only been 2 minutes, and I was kind of going back and forth with him, and he said, no, it's the same as like a heroin addict just doing a needle in their arm, like it hits that quick, and I was like, okay, if you say so, like yeah. I guess I should be feeling it now. Then like
Wait,
I
he said
remember going back.
Suboxone kicks in like that?
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Oh
yeah. He
my
was like, it's the
God.
same as a heroin addict putting a needle in their arm right there, like it hits you that quick. And I was like, okay. I mean, and I didn't know at this point.
Yeah.
Certainly, I knew that you told me to take less, but I didn't know about the timing. But I was like, all right, well, yeah, I'm certainly not like feeling anything at this point. So obviously, I
Hmm.
do need to take more, but didn't want to take the full amount. But as far as I felt at the restaurant, like I kind of remember the truck ride. I kind of remember like just kind of like laying my head on the window, like not wanting to move much. I remember
Hmm.
feeling like kind of embarrassed at the restaurant, like when I was trying to order, like and Leaf kind of taking it over. I don't remember the drive home from the restaurant. I remember I think I went to sleep when I got home, and then I think I woke up and felt like decent after that.
After a nap, like what, like an hour or so, or how long did you sleep?
It was several hours for sure.
Okay. Were
Yeah,
you worried about her as
for
she was sleeping?
No, I at that point I knew that was the best thing she could be doing was sleeping. Like, yeah, it was a lot.
Okay.
yeah, because it was in the morning that we went there, and I bet we ended up at the restaurant at like noon, and waking up from my nap. I think it was like 7:30 or something like that. I remember it being evening time.
So when you woke up, you were feeling just kind of normal, or how did you feel once you woke
Yeah,
up?
yeah, I felt okay. Like I remember like being like, holy crap! Like I went from zombie to like I feel like I could do a load of laundry right now. Like
Yeah.
I legit like folded a load of laundry and remember being like very proud of myself that I could do that. And then after that, I think we probably just relaxed. But um, I definitely felt okay after the facts. Yeah,
Okay.
like I remember feeling like shocked that I actually had any energy to do anything.
Hmm. Because you knew how bad the withdrawal was from getting off opiates in the past, and
Hmm.
you can't be
Hmm.
doing stuff like that if you're going through withdrawals.
Oh hell no! Like I laid in bed without any, like Suboxone or anything. I would lay in bed. I laid in bed for, gosh, probably a week. Probably like a week. I did the minimums, but if
Hmm.
I laid in bed, it was horrible.
So let's say for the next week after you got started on Suboxone, what would you say that you kind of found like your sweet spot dose at? Were you tinkering around with it? Did you take right what he prescribed, or were you taking lower, or what were you doing there?
Oh no, yeah, I tinkered around with it. I never took that dose again. I think, if I remember right, the next day I may have started at 4 with like the thought in my head, if I feel withdrawals, I can take a little bit more.
Hmm.
And I think 4 was fine that day, as far as I
Mhm.
can remember. Yeah, I think 4 was good. I think I stuck at 4 for like a week or so. And then the next week, I think I went to like 3.5, and then
Okay.
to 3. And then like I slowly started dwindling it down. Um, and it may have been a couple weeks, actually, now that I'm thinking back. It probably was a few weeks at each dose, and
Okay.
cutting it in probably quarters, so not half. So it was probably like 4 milligrams down to 3 3/4, down to every couple weeks. And then I think my sweet spot, like the point I maintained at, was about 2 to 2.5 some days.
That's where you kind of felt like if you could call a normal on Suboxone, that's kind of where you felt normal was around 2 milligrams.
Yeah, and like I may have cut it down too quickly, because looking back, when I was on like the 3 and 4 milligram, I remember going and like talking to my family, like, this is crazy. Like, I feel okay. I don't
Mhm.
feel phenomenal, but I actually feel okay. I have no temptation to take anything. Like, I can't believe I'm doing okay. I have no desire to, go find your pill stashes or whatever. This is crazy. Um, and then after I kept cutting it down, I became more fatigued, but didn't want to go the opposite direction. Like, I didn't want to go back up again. If I've cut down, stay there. You know what I mean? So
So did you ever go higher after that? Like, did you ever take like 8, like just on a normal day ever? Never?
no.
Okay,
Mm-mm,
that's good.
no.
Because you knew that you'd be just zonked out, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've no desire for that again. Like,
Okay.
I think I may have increased it like half, or maybe a whole one a couple times, or as needed, but no, never. Mm-mm. I bet I never got up to 6
Okay.
after that.
So I'm gonna ask you a quick question, Lee. I know we've kind of talked about some of these things off camera, but have you tried Suboxone uh, ever in your life?
Yeah, so she was probably it was within the first. I want to say it was within the first few weeks of her being on it, and I felt like largely responsible for the fact because I don't feel like she necessarily wanted to to go down that road. Like
Hmm.
she did, but she didn't, and I was kind of like the driving force. I wanted to understand what it felt like. She didn't know about this, and I took like
Hmm.
2 or 3 milligrams, and I hated it. It made me feel like absolute shit, and it was an inescapable feel like shit because
Wait,
it just the half life of it stays in your body for so long. It made me feel terrible. Like
like what are some things that you were feeling like terrible? How like tired or groggy or high or
no, I wouldn't call it high. Just very like irritable, very irritable. Just uncomfortable, unpleasant. Um, I wouldn't describe the feeling as high. Very hard to put together thoughts, like very difficult to put together thoughts. Um, and I remember not being able to like, escape that feeling for like a day and a half. It just lingered and lingered and lingered. And it's just like never doing that again.
so he tried that just one time, 2 milligrams, and it just was like overpowering strong for you because you had no tolerance, right?
Yeah,
And it lasted a long time because of the long half-life. Did you know that it was going to last that long?
I had an idea that it was, but I didn't fully understand what it was gonna like how it was gonna make me feel.
Hmm.
That I did not fully understand. So
That's very interesting. I've always wondered like how people, and I've always been meaning to like ask you that because I kind of I knew that you tried it once, so I was always curious like the dosing and how you felt and stuff. So I'm glad to be able to ask you that. So is there anything else you want to comment on that about when you tried that, Lee?
Um, I mean, it definitely gave me a perspective, like a perspective that kind of stuck with me, over the following year, because she was, I think she was on it for about a year, and just kind of seeing what she went through while she was on it, just seeing how she acted, her mannerisms, just it was insightful.
I feel
So
like
you
it
kind
gave
of
him more patience with me, like I felt like he had more, um, yeah, like patience and what's the word?
you probably just understood like what you were feeling more, I
Right,
guess maybe
right.
is a way to say it.
Whereas he could have been, like annoyed, like, when are you gonna stop laying in bed, or when are like that kind
Mhm.
of thing. Like I felt like it did give him a slight perspective on how much a substance can change you in one way or another.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so Lee was saying that you were on Suboxone for about a year in total. Does that sound right to you guys?
mhm. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm trying to think how I should word this. Okay, so did you just taper down to like a tiny dose? Or I know that we kind of, well, I'll just say it. So
Go
so
ahead.
what is it that you ran out of Suboxone and then you were really struggling and I had recommended Kratom right at that point, right?
Yeah, so I
I'm
I
like,
had a plan. Yeah, I had a plan to cut it down because I was sick of, like, it came to a point that I didn't love the way it made my body. I just wasn't feeling healthy, and probably a lot of that had to do that I was drinking more at the same time.
mhm,
So that was, yeah, I decided I wanted to be done with it. It was also getting very expensive. And so I was like, hey, I have all this back stock because I kept my prescription the same. So they were thinking I started at 16 milligrams. So I had like pretty good stockpile. So I was like, I can
mhm.
use this over this many months, then cut down and cut down and cut down. And then at some point I took more than I had planned. So I eventually, it didn't have the little slivers I had planned out to cut it back, and I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter, like, I'm done. So I just stopped taking it, and I think probably my last one was less than like a 0.25 or a quarter of a milligram or whatever. It was really, really small, but still felt it like a mofo. And yeah, I was losing it. I was hysterical. I hated it. So yeah, then Leaf reached out to you and was like, "What do I do? I don't know how to help her." And I didn't have the option to, go back on. And thank goodness, because I would have, and I would have just gone through the same thing again, right? Like, it just. So yeah, he was like, "I don't know what to do. She's miserable." I think I had to work. I had to work the next day, and I was like, "I can't be like this. I can't." And
Hmm.
so yeah, I've got to figure something out. And so that's when you suggested Kratom, which we happen to have at the house. So
Yeah, so they actually already had kratom, but they didn't know that it would tinkle on your opiate receptors, guys. So I had just kind of explained to them that you could use kratom to fill in a gap if she's withdrawing, because everybody knows that even if you taper down to a quarter of a milligram Suboxone, there is still a withdrawal from it. So in my experience in the past, I have used a small amount of kratom, and I was very, as you guys know on the channel, that I'm very I put out a lot of warning for people who are going to try kratom because I know that it can be habit forming, and I know that it has ruined a lot of people's lives, and it is scary for someone like me to throw out the idea of using kratom, just knowing that how bad it can get. But where she was in a really desperate spot, I made sure that I gave them plenty of warning. Be very careful with this. This will work to get you out of withdrawal, but it can mess up your life if you let it. So after I gave them all those warnings about that, You tried it. How many days were you withdrawing at that point when you first took the Kratom?
I think it was day one. I think it was like
Day
my
one.
first day without it, if I remember. No, no, it probably was the day before I had taken my last dose. And then this was because I remember like it being the morning time, and I was like, I'm just going to watch a show. You went to the grocery store and came back, and I was like just bawling on the couch. So it was, maybe like 18 hours or so after my last dose. And
Wow.
yeah, it was brutal. It was horrible.
I'm
Horrible.
amazed that you hit withdrawal that fast.
I'm
Do you have
pretty
a
sure.
fast metabolism?
I don't know. I'm not good with timelines at all,
Okay.
but I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that it hit me that quick.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think the morning before I told him, taking my last one, here goes. Did pretty okay throughout the evening.
Yeah.
I somehow do okay, like sleeping for the most part. Like I don't think I slept great, but then in the morning was like, yeah, I'm like skin crawly. Like I hate it. I need a distraction. I don't want to do anything, that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it went. It was like I took my last dose that morning, and I bet it was a Friday morning, so it would have been early in the morning. It would have been like probably 6 a.m. And then the Saturday when we woke up is
Okay.
when it got really bad.
So how was your experience of Kratom? Like, did it remove all your withdrawals, most of them? Did you feel totally fine? Like, what was your experience?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy how quick it helped. Like I was in a pretty bad spot, and I didn't expect to be in that bad of a spot. Considering how low I felt like I was. Like I was like, I'll have some withdrawals. Like I've dealt with that before. I know what it's like. But it was pretty bad, and so the Kratom helped pretty quick. I want to say it was within like 40 minutes or so that I was like, okay, like I'm okay now. And you gave like very specific directions. Like I think it was like 3 capsules or something, every 3 or 4 hours as needed. So it definitely got me through that day, and I followed precisely because I certainly didn't want to get addicted to something else. And did okay that night. Next morning, followed the routine of like 3 pills every 3 to 4 hours, and then got used to that and kind of stuck to that for another year, basically.
Okay.
I think it was about a year.
Yeah, it's pretty close to a year.
Yeah, about a year. But I kept it pretty under control. Like I knew I did not want to end up in the same place. Like there were certain times I would take more, but it never made me feel any better taking more. And I like acknowledged that, and but also knew I didn't want to just stop cold turkey again.
Yeah.
So, I felt like this is legal. It's easy to get. It's doing the trick right now. So, yeah.
So you pretty much stayed on the same dose more or less throughout the whole year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how you would need to take it every 3 to 4 hours? Is that what you said?
Every 3 hours. It
Three
was like
hours. Okay.
3 pills every 3 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you could make it throughout the night without waking up in withdrawals. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
surprising
But
because for me, I would wake up halfway through my sleep and I would be sweating and kicking, so I'd have to
mhm.
down it real again. So that's what I hated about Kratom is for me because my metabolism's so fast and I was taking such a small dose because, I didn't want to get addicted to that. So it just I was like on the brink of withdrawal all the time because my dose was so low of Kratom. I was just like, and then
Mhm.
I tried to taper off myself and I couldn't do it. And just after getting a shitty night's sleep for a full month of Kratom, I went
Oh,
back on a low dose of Suboxone. So it's
right.
crazy that you could sleep so good on Kratom.
However, I was drinking. And
Oh,
you're
okay.
not a big drinker, so I was drinking throughout that whole time too, and then taking my
Okay.
sleep meds as well. So
Okay.
I'm sure that helped with like the sleeping aspect of
Yeah,
it. So it's not like similar things, but also different.
I gotcha.
Like the fact that I was drinking probably helped with sleeping, and you know, another addiction.
I gotcha. All right. So, okay. So after about a year's time or so, what is it that made you want to get off the Kratom? Just did you start to feel kind of how you did on Suboxone, or like what is it that made you?
I think it was for a while, like just never like feeling happy, never really feeling like I was living my life. Like I was going through the motions and I felt guilty like towards, him and like our family. Like I'm just here, but I don't feel like happy about anything. Like it doesn't matter how great life is or what they're like, I'm just here. And like I'm like that's a problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to like live a great life. It's short, So I'm like there's like got to be something different. And Kratom was kind of a side thought. It was just kind of something I was doing, to maintain not feeling absolutely horrible versus just going through the motions. And I had heard about ketamine treatments. I where I work, we sedate people. We have, nurse practitioners come in, and they had a ketamine facility. So I would hear stories about it and how great it works. So I started listening to a podcast. Actually, like I think it's the Psychedelic Medicine podcast. Highly recommend. And it like made me feel hopeful for the first time in a while. That like maybe I could be happy again without anything controlling,
Mm-hmm.
And so I listened to that so much, and I talked to Leaf about it, and he was super anti again. Like, no, it's just a more expensive addiction. Like, are you crazy? It's stronger.
Yeah.
That is the absolute opposite way we're trying to go. And I kept listening to it, and I was like, no, I'm doing it. Like, I feel like this is the right thing for me. So, I did it. He came with me. First treatment wasn't crazy strong. I noticed like little changes maybe that week, like maybe feeling slightly better. But then on probably my fourth treatment, because they recommend 6, and it was like my fourth treatment, you can't take anything 24 hours before, the day of, and 24 hours after to get full effectiveness, because it's binding to the same receptors. And it was so I got kind of used to just feeling real shitty the day before, the day of, you're kind of looped up the day of, but then that evening and then the day after having to deal with that. And it was like I came home from my ketamine treatment. I took a nap like I always do. I got up and I was sitting on the couch just thinking about it, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not taking it anymore. Like, I'm just done. And that was it. Didn't take it again.
So that was about halfway through your ketamine treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so let's going back to the start of your ketamine treatment. Were you taking Kratom as you were getting your first few treatments, or did you stop it all the way before, like you were talking about earlier?
No, I was still taking like the Kratom like regularly, but I did cut it out.
They didn't really have guidance. They like most doctors, medical practitioners, whatever. They don't really understand that. So I remember being with her and her asking like, okay, so what about this? What about Kratom? Like, how does that? And they're like, I don't know. And we're like, well, we know if it takes you out of withdrawal, just me and her talking, we know if it takes you out of withdrawal, then it's got to be binding the same receptors. So
right. Yeah.
We applied some common sense and decided take that out at least, the day before and the day after. They're telling you to take these other things out of the equation. So
like no alcohol, no opiates, no benzos, no THC, for the day before and the day after. And I want to say the nurse like on my next treatment did verify, Kratom's a no-go. Absolutely not.
So you didn't, for the first few treatments, you didn't notice any like adverse reactions with the Kratom fighting the ketamine, right? Like you didn't hit some crazy withdrawal spike out of nowhere or nothing like that?
No, nothing.
Okay. It just didn't, It just is it probable that the ketamine just didn't work as good the first few times because you were on kratom?
For sure, the first one. Well, no, because I did cut out kratom from the get-go. I
Oh,
did
okay.
not cut out alcohol from the get-go. The first treatment I drank because I thought like none of the other stuff, but I could still drink because I don't remember them saying that. Then when I went in for my first treatment, the doctor meets with me and he's like, so none of this, none of this, none of this. And maybe that was the time that the doctor was like, no, it was the second treatment that they were like, yeah, for sure, no kratom. But we did cut it out the first time. But I did drink the night before. And yeah, that one absolutely was not anywhere near what the other, as far as like, they want you to disassociate completely. And the first one, it was not a complete like dissociation, like a little bit, but not. Mm-mm. And then the next ones, you could 100% feel the difference. But as far as the kratom goes, no, I stuck to that pretty good. I think I knew, like we had talked about, like if that binds to that stuff, there's no way. And I'm not spending all this money to not get every benefit I can, you know?
Okay. So let's pause really quick here, guys. If you guys have any questions for these two, just remember that they're not YouTube creators like me, so they're not going to be able to hop on here and respond to your questions after the video post. So if you guys have any questions for them, please drop it in the comments now, and then we'll probably try to wrap this video up in the next 30 minutes or so, so I can ask their questions. If you guys have them, please feel free to drop it in there now. I noticed the chat's being pretty chill today. It looks like we have 15 people in here. Don't forget to hit the like button, guys. All right, so let's go. You said that the ketamine was pretty expensive. How much did it cost for all the treatments combined?
So if you pay for all six, and I think it varies, you know, depending on where you're at, but for all six treatments combined, it was 1,800. But I got a discount being in the medical field, like got like $200 off. So it was like $1,600 for
Okay.
six treatments, which, you know, it's a lot of money, but when you think of what you're spending on pills and stuff, it's
Yeah.
nothing. And it's definitely like not addictive in any way, because that was Leaf's concern is, you know, like, this is just going to be another addiction. It's even stronger than anything you've ever done, but it's not. It's an unexplainable experience, but the after effects are huge, huge. And they tell you that, you know, you're like, are you going to hallucinate and whatever? Yes. That's not the point. The point is that your neurons are like repairing through this throughout the process. And that's what helps with, you know, depression and anxiety, which I think is what generally tends to lead to addiction. And
Okay.
so, yeah.
So what, if you could, I know it's got to be very challenging to put into words what you're experiencing as they put the ketamine. They do it in your veins, right? And you're like laying down.
Mhm.
Do you go like, do you lose consciousness, or are you aware of what's going on the whole time? How could you, if you could
Oh,
try to explain it? I'm sure
yeah.
it's so
Yeah,
hard.
it's strange. It's strange. So, yeah, they, you know, take your blood pressure and all that and give you an anti-nausea pill because, you know, ketamine can cause, you know, nauseousness. They hook you up to your IV. I don't know how long it takes, but at some point they ask you about the room around you. Like, do you see the room? And at first you do, and then it kind of starts to blend, and then the room is gone. You are completely in another place. You're not there. And I didn't believe, I think it was my mom that went with me the first time. And she was like, yeah, that was weird. I didn't like it. I don't want to go again. I don't want to see you like that. And I was like, I mean, it's basically like I'm sleeping. And she's like, no, your eyes are open. You're
Oh,
like
wow.
looking around. And Leaf, he videotaped me and showed me. And I was like, oh my gosh, it looks like I'm looking directly at him at certain points, but I don't see the room once I'm out until I start to wake up.
Yeah, it was crazy. And her body would do this like wave thing.
Yeah, like
You were wiggling in your chair or what?
Oh,
It was like
it
this
was
wave.
like a wave that I was doing. My hands were like grasping at the chair. I make noises. You know, I had tears on the last one because I heard stories of people, you know, having, you know, emotional breakthroughs, and I was kind of expecting that. I don't think I had a full emotional breakthrough, but I definitely on the last one woke up and could tell I had been crying for some reason. But yeah, you're not present at all.
The
Not
whole
present at
time?
all. Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Did you
From the
feel
time
like
you
you were
go out.
did you feel like you were floating in outer space, or like
Oh,
what did it feel like?
oh yeah.
Could you remember?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you remember like pretty much all of it. It's hard to put into words, but I think the first couple times it felt like, I think I explained to my dad that it was like almost like the marshmallow peanuts type consistency is what you see, but it's like forming into these different worlds, and each world is a little bit different, and also feels like there's a challenge there to get through that world, which I think has to do with the body wave thing. I don't know, but it feels like you know, you're in this place and then it like drops a little bit, and then you're in a different kind of place, and then it drops, and you feel like you're in the universe. And there were certain points that I felt like this is real, this is reality, this is like this is what's reality, and the world doesn't really exist, you know what I mean? So it's unique, and I know people have had like, you know, bad experiences on it, and mine were all pretty consistent in that way of just going through these different worlds. And the weird, when you start to wake up, the room starts to slowly form back again. You start
Oh
to see,
wow.
you know, like the lines on
Damn.
the walls, and all of a sudden you're like back there. Yeah.
So, I mean, did you have any like bad parts? Like you were so freaked out while you were in this alternative
Never,
reality? Nothing like
never.
that?
You're so calm. You're so
See,
calm. Like when you
I
start
would,
to go out, your brain releases. Like you're like full acceptance. But then again, I
okay.
wanted to do it. You know, I wanted to go out. So I accepted it from the get-go.
Okay. So for me, like I would just something that scares me of like sometimes if I smoke weed, right? Like I could freak myself out and have like a bad trip, you could call it, and I would cry for like 2 hours straight just
Mm-hmm.
thinking that like my life is effed, right?
Right.
Is there any, do you think that that could happen if you're in there? You don't think it could ever trigger anything like that?
No.
Like I don't know
No.
why that would happen.
I think it could trigger emotions that probably need to be brought up, like
Hmm.
things that, you know, decisions that you make every day that you don't realize your subconscious are in charge of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it can, but as far as like being freaked out, no, I don't think that's possible. You're so relaxed and in it. And I think if you were to have like a bad episode, you wouldn't feel it until you were out of it, until you woke up, and then you would recognize, like, holy shit, like I just dealt with some trauma that has been nagging at me for 20 years, and you don't even realize that that's what it was. But then when you wake up, you process it, basically.
Okay.
But as far as like a bad trip, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay. So how long has it been since your last treatment, ketamine?
Oh,
Pretty close to 2 months.
2 months?
yeah.
Do you feel like it, whatever happened is like a lasting change? Like whatever benefits you got from it, which, what, less anxiety, less depression type stuff? Is that right?
100%. Yeah. Like significantly less depression. And I would say like at least a 50% reduction in like feeling anxious. Like, do I still get anxious sometimes? Yeah. Do I still have bad thoughts sometimes? Yeah. But it's entirely different. The way you don't even know what's happening, but the way you process things is so different, instead of like beating yourself up over something, you're like, you know what, it's okay. At least you're trying, you're dealing, you're, whatever. And I feel like it's a continued progression. Like I've been wanting to go back to the gym for forever. And a friend just called me, and I've had multiple friends reach out like, hey, come to the gym with me. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. Even though I know I want to, I know I need to. And my friend, texts me. I'm like, hey, I'm doing a class tonight. You want to come with me? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I went, I enjoyed it. I've been going ever since, which was something that was kind of a barrier thing for me. But yeah, do I still have struggles? 100%. But I feel like it was game changing.
Did you guys talk at all? I walked out of the room for a minute. Did you talk at all about like the science behind like what the whole ketamine treatment does? Like, why and because I think the full benefits of the treatment can take up to 6 months to actually happen.
Okay.
And, like she was saying, I was anti at first. I was also in my mind thinking when she was saying ketamine, I was thinking of a different drug. Entirely, and I can't think of the name of the drug that went through my head that I kind of transposed this one with, but the science behind it is it's repairing, it's basically repairing like neurons in your brain.
Mm-hmm. It's like synapses
neurons that it's making your brain work in a different way than it was working before, and it's not like this overnight fix, this overnight like solution. It's something that does take time, and that's why they say after 6, 7, 8 months, you've done these treatments. If it doesn't, if you're still not feeling the way, you can do like boosters or whatever. And there's some people that end up needing to do that, and there's some that don't. And it's interesting. Anybody that's listening, you could go and research how they figured that out. It has to do with the war back in like the 60s, 70s, and people that were, had PTSD, and they were, everybody was given ketamine, or a lot of these people were given ketamine, and also they didn't have depression. So there's a lot of interesting things you can read about that online and kind of learn about that. But there's definitely some science behind it and how it works.
Yeah, that's good to know. Did you guys see my phone just black out?
Yeah, and mine's about to die.
You just plugged it in. It's a little bit back.
Oh, there we go. I think.
How much battery do you have left?
Well, sorry. It's good. I think it just said low battery mode, and I plugged it in, so it should be good.
I'm glad you guys kept going because my phone was totally off for like 20 seconds.
Well, I didn't know if like people could hear when yours closes. I was like, well, I'll let it keep going because I don't know.
Yeah, if that happens again, just keep rolling. Just talk to the people if you want to. Okay, so let me think what else. All right, so you feel like the benefits from it are increasing still and not decreasing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like after doing that, halfway through, cut out Kratom completely and did pretty fine with it. Like, I think I did my treatment. I would always do it on a Monday, and then I would have the Tuesday off. So I, probably struggled a tiny bit on the Tuesday, but went back to work and did fine without anything, which is crazy for me. Work is always like kind of a trigger because I feel like I have to perform, at peak level if I can. So that's always when I fall back, and I didn't at all. Like I struggled, but like didn't fall back at all, and haven't looked back since. And then cut out vaping completely, which I was like chain smoking vaping, and cut my antidepressants in half. And like I do feel like it's continuing to get better and better.
Cut down drinking, quite a bit.
Yeah,
I see it. I see, and it's been like a gradual improvement. We don't we don't really fight like we used to. We used to get in pretty big arguments, and we don't fight. It's a big change. It's a big improvement. It's super noticeable. Just like a whole bunch of little things that have added up to a big thing, really.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
not it's not this instant huge change. No. Oh, sorry. Hold on.
We're cutting him off a bit. I want to make sure he's in here too. There you go. There you go. Okay. So, all right. So, just thinking back, Ash, over all of your different, basically,
Stages of
what's the
addiction.
word I want to use? Yeah, like if you could, like, yeah, exactly. If you could think back to just kind of remembering what your life was like when you were at the height of your opiate addiction, and then when you were deep into Suboxone, and then when you were on Kratom. If we could just kind of go through with like the rating system thing, you guys all know I like to do this. If you could rate each thing, a 0 is horrible and you hate it, and a 10 is your average happiness is like good. Hopefully, does that make sense? Did I confuse you right there? So 10 would be maximum happiness, and a 0 would be miserable.
Okay. Maximum
Now
happiness.
I'm just gonna talk about it and what happiness number comes to mind when you were at the worst of your opiate addiction, 0 to 10. Just like your average mood on an average day.
It's so hard because it just depends on like if I had a pill or if I didn't. If I was high, then I was feeling pretty good. Like, but also didn't have a ton of emotions or like true connection or the word probably like a 6.
So your life was a 6 average happiness when you were on painkiller addiction? What about all the down parts of
I was
coming
gonna say
down
a
and like,
6, but desperate all the time.
okay,
I think I was so distracted with that I didn't face a lot of real problems. I didn't feel a lot of the real problems. So it was like an ignorance.
okay.
But looking back, like when I was high, like there were times that I did feel like I was happy, even if it was false.
Yeah.
So, that is such a tough question. It's
If I interpret the question the right way, it's like an average of the way you feel during that period of time,
like your lows of your lows and your highs of your highs.
right?
I'll just give you an example. For me, when I was on painkillers, like just looking at myself in the mirror, I just felt like the biggest turd in the whole world. Like I hated my life, even though you have that false happiness for a couple hours. You're constantly worried about, well, 2 hours later, I'm going to be going down, and
Yeah,
the fun happiness is
constant.
it's like I knew it was fake, and I knew that I was just going to be struggling, and I had to go spend another $200 tomorrow on the same just to buy my happiness for 2 hours. So for me, like it would have been like a 1. I hated my life when I was on
Okay.
opiates. So that I don't know if that better explains kind of what I meant as far
No,
as
it
that
does.
goes.
It absolutely does. I was constantly watching the clock and worried about getting caught and this and that. And so yeah, it was probably like a 3.5, 3 to 4.
Okay. Now, if you transition from there to like halfway, let's say halfway through your Suboxone, what was your average?
Halfway through, it was probably like a 5.
5,
Yeah.
so a little bit better than your opiate. Okay. And then
Yeah,
when you went to Kratom, oh, go
and
ahead.
on that note, at the beginning of Suboxone, it would have been like a 6 to 7, and then
Okay.
towards the end of Suboxone, it was probably like way less than that.
Okay. So
it's safe to say that for you and a lot of people I've heard as well, like it really works well in the beginning stages, especially once you
Oh
get
yeah.
the dose nailed down. But then over time, it stops to kind of, how would you word that? Like there's like
I
something
didn't.
in your soul that just tells you you don't want to be on
Yes.
this, right?
Yes. Yeah. 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 Just like this is not what I want anymore. Like I don't like the way it's making me feel anymore. But it does. Yeah, absolutely. But at first, I couldn't have cut pills out without it. I know that. Like for
Yeah.
good, I couldn't have done it.
Yeah, same
No.
here. I think I must have withdrawn like 15 times trying to just willpower my way off, and I could never do it either. That's why when I found
Mhm.
Suboxone, it felt like a miracle, and it was because it stopped me from doing felonies every freaking day, right?
Seriously, because yeah, that's yeah.
We all know one pill is a felony if you're getting it illegally.
Yeah,
That
he
can
would
mess up
worry
your
about
life
that
pretty
too.
freaking quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now switching to Kratom, just like on average, how did you feel with Kratom?
Probably about this. I would say probably about like a 4 to a 5. I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, at first, it's great. Like did the trick. But probably felt slightly worse on that as far as like as a person, like
Okay.
it was no longer like a prescribed thing, and I think I felt like weaker on it, like a weaker person, um,
Okay.
as far as
Like
like
spiritually or physically?
spiritually,
Okay.
like I felt like I was like a lot harder on myself with that. I felt like with Suboxone it
Okay.
was like a um this is a good thing. Like you're using this to quit something, like you're quitting a
Yeah.
bad habit and this is helping you fix that. But on Kratom, I think I was like, you're kind of just doing the same shit again, like
Okay.
it's helping you get by. But I think I felt worse on Kratom for sure, for sure.
Okay.
And also physically felt worse.
Okay. On Kratom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good to know. So I think like how I'm looking at it, how you're talking about it, for me, I would think that why I what sorry, let me start over. So why I believe Suboxone, like comparing low dose Suboxone to low dose Kratom, I've said it on the channel before, guys. I believe that the less time you can give your addiction each day, the better. And so what the thing that sucks about Kratom is the half-life is so short that you're having to think about it every 3 hours, like she said, every 3 hours, gotta, and then like you get the Kratom burps, and that shit's nasty. The taste of Kratom is nasty if you're taking the powder. And with Suboxone, you can take it once or twice a day and just move on with your day. You don't have to watch the clock all day. And so that's why I believe that Suboxone is the better choice if you're going to stay on one of them long term and a low dose. High dose, I don't know, I don't have any experience with high dose kratom, so I can't talk about that. But would you agree with kind of how I just said that, or do you think something
100%.
different?
100%, because that I think that probably was like what was going on emotionally in the back of my head is like you're just an addict again. Like I was hiding it at work, taking these pills, like you know what I mean? And it was like exactly kind of like being on pills again, like a
Yeah.
legal form of it. But whereas with the Suboxone, it was just like you're take one in the morning and you're good. So yeah,
Okay.
that's a good way to put it. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, it was like the needing it every 3 hours. Yeah,
It's
hundred
just
percent.
like you're giving so much of your life to your addiction. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's time that you could be spending with your family or working, but no, you have to watch the clock and am I starting to withdraw? It's just on your mind constantly. So it's very heavy
Making
to
sure, yeah, making sure you have enough. Like, oh, I'm running low. I gotta go, even though I don't want to. I gotta go to the store and get it. Yeah, all the time, all the time.
just a pain in the butt. All right, so let's fast forward to now. Like, what's your average 0 to 10 after kratom, after 2 months of ketamine treatment being off?
It's probably like a 7.5.
7.5. That's a big improvement. Yeah, that's a really big improvement.
Mm-hmm. Like
And you also stopped vaping too, right?
Yeah. And that was another habit I
Congratulations,
felt
man.
guilty about. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. You've come so far. It's been cool to see like the different seasons of your life, like, you know what I mean? Like, and to kind of be involved as I'm obviously
Right.
close to you guys, to like see your progression. It's really cool, and it's got me looking at ketamine stuff. Recently somebody was talking about ibogaine. Do you guys know anything about ibogaine?
Mm-mm.
I think that it could be a similar type of experience, but don't quote me on that, guys. I'm just barely starting to look into ketamine and ibogaine. So if you guys are watching this on the replay, and if you know anything or if you have experience with ketamine or ibogaine, leave us some comments and let us know what your experience was with it, because I am seeing a lot of good reviews about ketamine and also the ibogaine as well. I guess you can go to like Mexico and stay for like a week, and it's kind of the same type of thing. It's like you're on a vacation for a week and they treat you and you just purge everything out, I guess.
Sounds awesome. There's so many things like that, like ashwagandha or whatever it's called. And is that what it's called?
I think that might be the same thing that we're talking about here. Just
Ashwagandha.
Yes.
Is that what it is? No, is that? What's the one where
you
people
drink
go
it
and puke?
You drink it and then they puke.
They puke like crazy.
And it's like a resort thing.
Yeah.
You know, you do.
They purge and.
Yeah.
Is it kava?
No, it's. God damn it.
I don't think I've heard of that.
It's like a plant medicine, again, that I think it's most popular in like Peru. But you can definitely get it here, and it's supposed to be kind of like a trip, but mostly like you puke and shit a lot and purge out all the bad shit, and that you're carrying, because people carry bad stuff all the time and they don't even realize it. So I've heard that can be beneficial too.
Okay.
Sounds miserable.
There's actually a podcast it's Tom Segura's podcast, and he has, what's the comedian's name?
Joe Rogan?
No, comedian that drinks a lot with
there's
Foxworthy. What the hell's his name?
Bill the Cable Guy.
Not the Cable Guy, not Foxworthy. The hell's the guy's name that drinks a lot, smokes cigars?
Guarantee.
I don't know. I don't watch a lot of
TV. They're stand-up comedians. They're big time. But he did it.
Both of our phones are off.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ron. Yes, Ron White.
Ron.
If you look up, that's a very good podcast, by the way. Tom Segura with Ron White. Very interesting, because it's an addiction episode, a lot like this. And he's talking about how he quit drinking. He's been an alcoholic his whole life, right? And he talks about this experience. What brought that up? So,
it's ayahuasca. That's what it's called. Not ashwagandha.
Okay.
Ayahuasca.
I gotcha. Yeah. I think somebody was posting something about that in the comments just a minute ago too.
Yeah.
I can't even pronounce that word, but side note, Marky Rizzo, what's up, buddy? I had just seen your video. I made a comment on the video that you were talking about with your you sent me with your ibogaine experience. So hopefully you can see that comment soon. So I'm gonna ask you a few questions, Lee. So kind of the similar thing with like the scoring 0 to 10, as far as how you would rate your guys' relationship happiness, like your contentness in the relationship, as she was on each chapter of her addiction, right? So you understand what I mean as far as like how to rate it and stuff?
Yeah, so 10's best, 0's worst.
Yep. So thinking back to when she was at her worst part of her opiate addiction, what would you rate it 0 to 10? Your guys' relationship?
0. Like at the worst, the 0.
0. You were that desperate. It was that bad. What was the worst part? Worst couple parts about why it was so crappy?
Just fighting and not really understanding why. Like why are we fighting about the things that we're fighting about? And why are we fighting to the level that we're fighting about these things that just don't make it? Just most of the time it never made sense.
Okay.
I'm a very, very logical person, and when things don't just make sense, it's difficult. So
Okay.
there's other factors that are involved with
I
what's
got
going
you.
on, and
Okay.
yeah,
What about if I asked you the same question, Ash? What would you say? Would you agree with what he said about zero? Is that
I
about
don't
how
know,
you felt? Were you?
0.
he said the worst. He said the worst part.
Oh, the
Yeah, the
worst part.
worst
Like right
part.
at the
Okay,
worst.
okay. I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was pretty
0,
bad, button
maybe
heads.
verging on a 1, but yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. And all right, so let's fast forward to when she was on Suboxone, just like her average time on Suboxone. What would you guys rate your relationship at that point?
I'd say it was like around
I'd say
four,
4.
I'd say a 4 to 5, just
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
So is it safe to say that Suboxone may have saved you guys' marriage?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, if she would have kept, if she
yeah,
would have continued
yeah.
with pills, it was the concoction of mixing pills and alcohol. Our relationship would we wouldn't be together still for sure.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow, that's really good to hear that. So for you guys that are stuck in your opiate addiction, because I do polls, and I do know that plenty of you guys that are watching this channel and watching this video are still stuck in your active addiction. So if you're in your active addiction and you're having horrible relationships issues, listen to what these guys just went through. And she wasn't even really that deep. She was only up to 60 to 80 milligrams a day. Myself, I was up to like 150 milligrams, right? At a time, just at once, first thing in the morning, I would just bang down, what was it, 6, 7 Roxy 30s or whatever that was. So I was obviously having horrible luck in relationships. It was a very toxic scenario for me. Ever since I got off of opiates and onto Suboxone, my relationship standards have gone so far up. Like I won't tolerate any drama from anybody in my life, any friends, family. I've cut family out. Like it's like you're leveling up. Yeah, you're not all the way sober. Of course, we all know that. We all know that there's a withdrawal from Suboxone, but it buys you the time to like fix the other issues in your life, I believe. And you guys just heard what they said. It jumped their relationship from a 0 to a 4, so, or 5 almost, he said. So what about if we fast forward to Kratom? Was it about the same happiness for you guys on Kratom?
I would say like from what I noticed, I would say it was a little bit of an improvement actually.
Okay.
I know she said it was a little bit lower for her, but like what I observed, I would say it was a little bit of an improvement. Like not
Okay.
much, very very marginal.
Okay.
I remember. I also remember her. You know, just kind of audibly being more in a funk than I remember with Suboxone. But
Hmm.
like as a whole, there was just something about it that where she was things were just a little bit better in our relationship. I
Okay.
don't know if maybe she had like just a little bit more of like a sex drive, or a little bit more emotion. Is
A
something.
little bit more energy. I did have a little bit more energy on the Kratom, I would say.
Okay.
The end of the Suboxone, I was incredibly fatigued. And
Okay.
I do remember Kratom giving me a little bit more energy or pep,
Okay.
but also with guilt, that I'm like back on a regular routine of taking something. But
I got you.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. And let's fast forward to now. Like, what would you guys rate your relationship right now?
I would say. I would say it's probably like
Turn an
that was actually the number that was coming to my mind. I was
Yeah,
gonna say like approaching an 8.
yeah, yeah.
That's a huge difference you guys have made. I mean, just going back, what was that, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, you were at a
Yeah,
0,
yeah,
and you guys have been married now for 7, is it yours?
Together for 7, but
yeah.
married for like
4, 5, 5.
5.5.
Okay. So your relationship is about 7 years old, and that's usually what they say the time when relationships are gonna basically make it or break it is 7 years. That's been
Right.
my scenario too. Is 7 years is like, all right, this ain't working no more, gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so props to you guys for not giving up on each other. It's really cool to to kind of be a part of your guys' experience as you guys have grown and patched things together and worked through the hard times. I wanted to say, I wanted to ask you guys about our conversation we had the other day, and talking about self-guilt. You had told me, Ash, that you self-guilted yourself more for alcohol than you did while you were on Suboxone. Was that right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
What do you think it is that makes you self-guilt yourself so much more from taking alcohol than when you were on Suboxone? And you said even opiates too. You weren't really self-guilting.
I wasn't. Not a whole ton. I feel like with let's see. I feel like with Suboxone, it was like a way of improving myself, a way of getting off of something, means to an end. That, it was helping me get off of something that was, ultimately destroying my life, because it would have. I would have lost my job. I would have lost leave. It would have been bad. I know it would have ended up there. So Suboxone felt like a helping hand in that, where alcohol feels like another thing to abuse, another thing to mask feeling, another thing to take the edge off instead of actually feeling or dealing with things, it to a point. Like I certainly am not saying like alcohol is so bad all the time, but I definitely feel like I'm drinking more than I should, more than and it is getting progressively better, but also I just still, I feel really, really guilty about it. I hate the way I feel in the mornings, even if I only had a few drinks the night before. What it does to your body as far as gaining weight and motivation, it's clearly a downer. So I complain about being tired all the time or feeling fatigued all the time, but then I'm like, but then you drink, so like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, I know better, but haven't stopped it yet, which is a mental battle. Like, makes you feel like a weak person for not doing that. Like,
I gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. And what about you, Lee? How do you feel as far as like, do you self-guilt yourself for drinking?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things. Like we were talking the other day. I wish I just never would have started. It's one of these things that you kind of grow into, and you look back before you know it, it becomes like a regular thing, and it becomes so ingrained into who you are that it's difficult to see yourself as any anybody else. And when you try, it's difficult. It's a difficult thing to kick, and it's not like we're doing this like all day every day, but it's a regular thing. It's a regular thing, a pattern, and be awesome. Be awesome if we could kick that. It's really the biggest and only real challenge we have left at this point, is figuring out a way to
Well,
get
that's
past
good,
that.
man. You guys have worked your way so far into it that there's really only one more thing to do. And just imagine how, like, if we have this conversation again, say in a year's time, and you guys both successfully kick the alcohol, imagine how much higher your happiness levels are going to go. You guys are going to be at a 10. And these guys are very successful financially. They have a beautiful home, a beautiful family. They're healthy. Like, these guys have their shit together. And sounds like the only thing really keeping them from being at a freaking 10 with their relationship is it just the alcohol, right, guys?
Oh yeah.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think
So
we'll do it. We'll do it. It's just in due time.
yeah, you're working on it. You can't, what did they say? Rome wasn't built in a day. You guys
Yeah.
both quit nicotine. You guys both quit vaping. I know that's a huge thing to stop doing that. How would you guys rate like guilting yourself on nicotine or smoking cigarettes or vaping? Like, did you feel really guilty and gross about that compared to alcohol? Like, how would you rate that?
I definitely did. Definitely did. Considering like my profession, like that's like a no-brainer, you know. And I never was like a smoker before or anything like that. It was like a simply like, oh, that smells good. Let me try it. Oh, let me try it. Oh, let me have it. Oh, let me have it. Like, oh, okay, now I've got my own, and it just grew to that. And so for me, it was like such an unnecessary thing. But once you're hooked, you're hooked. And
Hmm.
you know, sneaking off to do it at every place I was at, doing it in front of the kids, even though they had voiced, you know, they don't like it. Like, I would say it was just slightly below the guilt of alcohol. Yeah.
Okay.
But I 100% felt like such a hypocrite. Such a
And
hypocrite.
it was different for me. I get why she's saying what she's saying, but you know, I smoked cigarettes for I don't know, better part of a decade. And so for me, it was like, oh, this is so much better. And I still feel the
Yeah.
same way that it is so much better to an extent, but also still obnoxious. And at the end of the day, it's not making my life better. It's not improving my life in any way, shape, or form. And it's just why I just spent a lot of time thinking about that. You know, probably over the last several years that we did it, and just finally it was just like, just gonna stop, just gonna quit. It wasn't easy for either of us, but
Hmm.
you know, I'd say we're like probably two and a half months in.
Mhm.
I'm finally at a point where I can honestly say I'm not thinking about it, like really at all. And even up to a couple weeks ago, I would still occasionally think about it or occasionally miss it. So it's not an easy thing to quit or to get past, but at the same time, it's totally doable.
And definitely worth getting off of, right?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
Dang, Lee, I can see you're looking jacked here in the video, buddy. Just checking out. I know
Yes.
you've been. You look really good, man. You look really athletic. It's good. It's good to see. I know I was just seeing. I just seen you the other day, but I didn't see your guns pumping out like that. So, sorry, I see you blushing over there. You got 15 people in here listening to you. All right. So let me ask you guys, Ash, mostly on this one. If you could have done everything again, what route would you have gone differently? Like, would you have cut out Suboxone and just went right to ketamine if you were on opiates? Like, if you were stuck in your opiate addiction right now, what would be your easiest way out of it
Oh.
that you would think? Like, would you bypass the Kratom altogether? Would you bypass Suboxone altogether? And do you think you could even do that? Like, what? Sorry if that might be a pretty confusing question.
No, no, I get it. Yeah, if I could have bypassed Suboxone and Kratom and just gone to ketamine and it worked 100%, I would do that. However, the problem with the ketamine is it's a treatment once a week, so they're a week apart. So you know, it's not an instant fix. So I don't think it would have worked per se in that scenario. Because I think it would take some time. So you know, unless you're gonna go through you know multiple shitty weeks, then it
Yeah.
wouldn't have worked that way. But I definitely would have cut past kratom for sure and gone straight to ketamine. Um, yeah, I think unless you can take 6 weeks off of life, you know, to do a treatment once, you know, once a week and then have the next 6 days and then another treatment, have the next 6 days. And I think you can do it closer together than that. Just the clinic I went to, that's the way they did it. And I think that's the most common.
I think
I
you would.
think it could work, but
I think if you were going to go straight from Suboxone to ketamine, though, the challenge you would probably face is Suboxone stays in your system for like what 1 to 3 days.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna, you basically have to stop it as you started the other.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like you said, the half-life of Kratom, it's out of your system fairly quick versus Suboxone.
Yeah.
You'd have to make that decision, I think, to completely quit.
Yeah.
You couldn't go back to it.
Yeah.
And ease out of it at all. It would have to be something you stop at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. All right. I'm gonna ask you this question, Ash. I want to know what your first initial thoughts come to mind. So, and I ask everybody this that gets off Suboxone. So, if I told you tomorrow, or somebody told you tomorrow that you have to get back on Suboxone, what is your initial few thoughts that come to mind?
No. No. Why? Just
Just because you have to,
you have to get
and
back on it. Oh.
And you knowing everything that you know about how you felt on Suboxone, what do you think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, no way. I no.
You would just
No. I think it was super beneficial for what I was going through. I don't think there was any other way out of that mess, but to go back on it, no. I would struggle with that. It's awesome, being done with it,
Okay.
And I feel like if I went back on it, it would take not very much time to feel like you needed something like that again. Yeah.
You think you'd be instantly depressed if you jumped back on that medication?
I don't know about instantly, but pretty quickly. Yeah.
Okay.
Within a week or two, for sure.
Okay. See, I ask everybody that gets off, and every single person says they don't want to go back on it. So it's cool to see, it's for those of us that are still on it, it's helpful, obviously, to keep us out of withdrawal, but it's great to see that once people are off of it, they don't want to get back on it. So that gives people like myself hope, that it's going to feel better to be off this medication than it is to drag it out, another 50 freaking years.
Yeah. Well, and it is
Okay.
still hard, first getting off of it, but I do feel like, not that I'm out here promoting ketamine or anything, but I feel like that helps so much.
If you didn't take ketamine, do you think you'd still be on Kratom today?
Yeah.
And both are like, yep.
Yeah.
All right.
That's still be doing nicotine and vaping still, honestly. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't, I had nothing to do with it. She's trailed behind me. I quit. She trailed behind me like a half a week before she quit. But I don't think she would have been able to quit.
No.
I don't.
I wouldn't have even I would have been like, yeah, you do you. But I was like, I freaking quit Kratom, so I can quit this. No big deal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting to pick your guys' brains on this stuff. Real quick before I let you guys go, I know of course we've gone over 2 hours already. I'm gonna scan through a couple different questions really quick. You guys, if you have any final questions, throw it in there right now for them. I'll just kind of scroll up a little bit here. Let's see here. Marky says Alan Carr made a great book for drinking. It's called The Easy Way to Cut Back on Alcohol. It's on the Amazon Audibles. So
Good
you
to know.
guys
Thank
might
you.
be interested in that. Oh, real quick, I was going to ask you, what was that podcast you were talking about earlier?
I think it's the psychedelic medicine podcast.
Okay,
I think I sent it to you maybe. It's
you did. Right.
Yeah. And she goes through psychedelic medicine podcast. Very, very, very interesting. She was a doctor and an attorney, I think, and she worked at the VA for years and years and saw how many problems there were and got out of it and looked into plant medicine, basically. Yeah. So it's all about plant medicines and each different one and how they affect, everything. And yeah, it's really interesting.
Okay, that sounds like a lot of people could benefit from checking it out. So, let's see. Misty says, "You guys have been so great, so interesting. Thank you. I never thought about getting off of Suboxone honestly until this video." So
Oh,
that's awesome to
yay!
hear.
Glad to help someone. That's awesome.
Yeah, you could do it, Misty. You gotta fight the good fight, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. I said comedians, Ron White. Everybody said Ron. Um, Marky was saying you can just do ibogaine at home. How would you get that, Marky? Can you get it prescribed or something? Like I don't understand that part of it, the ibogaine treatment. And is it just a one-time thing with ibogaine, or is it like a session thing like how ketamine is? Misty asks, she says, Ashley, are you followed by a psychiatrist that does monitor your mental state? Question mark. I'm just curious how you keep from being depressed.
No, no, I haven't done any therapy or psychiatry or anything like that. Like I talked to my doctor about cutting the antidepressants in half because I felt like I could do it. You know, I felt like I was doing pretty good, and I still do get depressed. I still have hard days for sure. But I hate to keep saying it, but like the ketamine, like honestly helped pull me out of such a funk. I mean, every day it was just like get through whatever I need to get through, and I just want to sleep because I don't want to deal with anything. I don't, I found no like pleasure, happiness in very like anything really. It was just yeah. But going through that, it's crazy. It is very small differences at first, but at the end of the day, you're like, holy crap! Like I actually feel okay. This is crazy. Like I feel happy, but they do recommend therapy while you're going through it. I just didn't. Probably should have,
Okay.
but I didn't.
They did ask her like a questionnaire. They had her fill out like a couple-page questionnaire of like how are you feeling in this category, scale of 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think it's just to track progress, but it's obviously not like a psychiatrist or a therapist that way.
Okay. I gotcha. Okay. Do you think that you'll ever need to do the ketamine treatments again, or do you want to? Like, what's your thoughts on that? Or do you think you're okay from here out, or what?
No, I think I'll do them again. At the end of my 6 treatments, I gave it like a 2 week. I was like, I need to give my brain a break, and I've done the 6 treatments. Let's see how it goes. And then, but also knowing my first treatment didn't fully work. And in about 2 weeks, I started to notice, feeling like a little bit more depressed. And they told me like, don't let it catch up with you. Like if you're starting to feel depressed again, starting to feel anxious again, like call us, right away. I got in like 2 weeks later and I did another treatment, and that was like 2 months ago, but I could see it being kind of an upkeep maintenance thing, depending on your lifestyle, what you're going through. I think like the more active I get, the less I will need it, but also I don't feel any shame in if I do need it every 6 months, 3 months, a year. Some people do it for seasonal depression. If they're, like
That's a
winter's
good
coming
idea.
and they get seasonal depression, they'll just do a treatment for that, So I'm not planning on it by any means, but if I feel like I am like slipping backwards again, like I would not hesitate to do it. And I think to do additional treatments, like they call them boosters, it's like $250 a booster. So, and they last,
Okay.
I
Oh,
saw there was a question about how long the infusion is. I think you're under for like 30 to 40 minutes. Total time is like 60 in there.
okay. And how did you feel like when you're coming out of it? Like after, like when you're walking out the door, are you like dizzy or tired
Oh
or?
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're like just waking up from anesthesia. Like I think a lot of people
Okay.
lay there for a while. I was apparently like, soon as I started to wake up, like get me out of here, trying to stand up. But yeah, I had to like have someone hold me to walk. Like the car ride was just like, whoa, like you're out of it, so out of it.
I gotcha. All right. Well, looks like that's most of the questions here. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people posting. There will be for sure people posting comments and questions. I don't know if you guys are ever on YouTube, but if you see any particular comments or questions and you feel like you want to respond, and that's up to you guys, but don't feel like you have to, have to do that because then you never know. So,
No, absolutely.
but yeah, I
Absolutely.
wanted to. Yeah, I'm sure you'll see the comments. So if you decide you want to respond on the comments, feel free to do so. So make sure that if you guys are just seeing the video now, hit the like button if you can. That helps the channel grow, guys. I want to thank you two for being so brave and coming on here and sharing your story. Like everybody on this channel that watches this is also struggling with addiction issues. So I really appreciate you guys are the first people that I know in real life to come on here and share their story. Do you guys have any questions or comments for me?
No, thank you. I don't think I would be where I'm at today without you. So thank you. And I think this helps a ton. Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate you, man. You've helped. You definitely have helped.
Like every step along the way. Like if I was struggling, I'm like, I'm going to text Kev because I don't know what to do. And I'm feeling this. Like, thank you. You've been freaking amazing.
Yeah, you guys are welcome. It's been a blast to like try to help you guys figure it out because I'm also trying to figure my own crap out. So it's like some of it's trial and error, and we're just kind of like science projects on our own. We're all trying to like figure our own crap out.
Yep.
But yeah, it looks like we've got 17 people in here now. So guys, don't forget to hit the like button on the way out. I guess we will go ahead and shut down the video here. Maybe we can have you guys on again in maybe a year or so, and we can talk about how you guys kicked alcohol's ass.
Hell
next.
yeah.
I like it.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks for your help with everything today, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
See ya.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Yeah.